Alright guys, what is up and welcome back to another episode of Nwadei MMA, where I give you my thoughts, but more importantly ask for you guys' thoughts because you guys are the MMA community. And today we're going to be breaking down Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan, the fight taking place at UFC 300. One of the most popular fights on the card, one of the best fights on such an amazing card at UFC 300. And we're going to be breaking it down because Jesus Christ, what a close fight this is. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but every time I think about this fight, I'm just like, it can really go either way. I mean, you look at it, you think about it, man, Charles might not have the best chin, and we saw how he looked against the wrestler in Islam, Makhachev. We saw Arman's fight with Islam, and it seems like wrestling is just such a dominant base for MMA, and there's all of these things pointed against Charles Oliveira. But then you look at Arman Tsarukyan and you're like, he hasn't fought anyone like Charles Oliveira, but the way he ran through Beneil Dariush was very dangerous, and there's so many things leading into this fight that we have to talk about, and so many different avenues of success that either of these people can have. And we know that in high level MMA, it can really go either way. It just depends who shows up on the night, right? But there are some things that we could talk about and point to that will give us a better idea on who may come out on top, and if they do, how they will come out on top, right? And if you guys are new to the channel, the way I like to break down these videos is I like to break down each fighter style based off of their previous fights and use that to come up with keys to victory that they're going to need in this fight for both fighters in order to win. And then at the end of the video, I give you my prediction, if I have one, and my final thoughts on the fight. So if you guys are interested in fight reactions, breakdowns, and MMA analysis, then you're more than welcome to subscribe and join the family, and go ahead and give this video a thumbs up if this is something that you were looking for. However, with that being said, let's go ahead and get right into the body breakdown of Arman Tsarukyan and Charles Oliveira at UFC 300.
This is Noah Nwadei!
Okay guys, so as we look at these people's body and how they match up, Charles Oliveira is clearly the longer fighter. I mean, he's 5'10 compared to 5'7. He has a 74-inch reach advantage, which is 2 inches longer than Arman Tsarukyan's. He has a 41-inch leg reach, which is again 2 inches longer than Arman Tsarukyan's. He's the longer, slimmer fighter. Arman Tsarukyan is definitely more compact. He's gonna need to be coming forward in this matchup, which is a hard and tall task against a guy like Charles Oliveira, who tends to come forward himself. But just based off of these attributes, we would assume that he's going to need to get in close with Charles Oliveira, and that just might be what Charles Oliveira wants. However, going a little deeper into their body type breakdown and their stats and things like that, Charles Oliveira is the more hit fighter. He does get hit more often because he's coming forward a lot more. They land relatively the same amount of strikes per minute. Arman Tsarukyan lands a little bit more, which actually is a little bit surprising considering that Charles Oliveira thrives in the chaos. But as far as their grappling goes, Charles Oliveira actually has a higher takedown accuracy. Arman definitely shoots more shots, but when you shoot more shots, your percentage usually is gonna be lower. His takedown defense is better than Charles Oliveira's, but that's context behind that. Charles Oliveira also pulls guard a lot, which could be counted as a takedown for the other person, and Arman Tsarukyan does not throw up submissions at all. So, going into these fighters' styles before we study their film, we know that actually both of these fighters are grapplers. And while Arman Tsarukyan is very explosive on the feet and very compact, has a lot of power, throws a variety of different roundhouse kicks and slips them in there very quick. And Charles Oliveira, he has his Muay Thai background, loves the clinch as well, and yeah, but they're both grapplers, right? And I think in order to see how this fight plays out, we have to understand how they fight against other grapplers, because that's what this fight is, right? And so saying that, the fights we're going to be looking at in this breakdown for Charles Oliveira is going to be his fight against Beneil Dariush, a little bit of his fight against Islam Makhachev, and then also his fight against Gaethje, because there are a little bit of things that we could take from all of those fights, which are going to lead into how this fight with Arman might play out. And on Arman Tsarukyan's side, we're gonna watch his latest fight with Beneil Dariush as well. Maybe a little bit of his fight with Mateusz, Gamrot, just touch and go on a little bit of clips. And then we're also gonna watch his fight with Joaquim Silva, which was 2 fights ago, and he won it via TKO, which again is gonna have some things that we could use while breaking these fights down. So guys, thank you for stopping by the video. Again, like, comment, subscribe, share your thoughts with me on who you have in this matchup, and also give me your top 5 fights for UFC 300. I'm gonna work on breaking those fights down. We got a lot of breakdowns coming on. We know that UFC 300 is an extremely stacked card, so let me know your top 5 fights, and whichever post gets interacted with the most, those are the fights I'm gonna be breaking down. And if you haven't already went and saw my Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway breakdown, I'll leave a link to that in the description below, so go ahead and check that out as well. With that being said, let's get into the film study. Alrighty guys, so first order of business, we're gonna watch Arman Tsarukyan versus Beneil Dariush, since that was his latest fight. It's the most recent we've seen from him, and he had a lot of positives in this fight. So he's going against a southpaw, which you might not see from Charles Oliveira, but you are gonna see these big kicks. And he's just moving out of the range. He's just trying to gauge the range. He's staying patient, something that Charles Oliveira doesn't do too much. Using his jab. And that was a good job exiting by him. Now, this fight did end pretty quick, and you could call it what you want, luck, skill. However, Arman does have a tendency to strike out of the clinch, and we also know that what Arman, oh my god, woo, oh my god, damn, that was one more than necessary. But we also know that what Arman is doing right now, staying on the outside, using good footwork, is the same thing that Makhachev did against Charles Oliveira. He was able to stay on the outside, make Charles overcommit, and then fire back when he wanted to. This is something he's definitely gonna have to use against a guy like Charles Oliveira. Now, that was a very interesting way of clinch fighting. Now, there's not much you can really take from this fight other than the fact that he was very aggressive in the clinch. He threw a knee that actually didn't land, but as Dariush picked his head up, he let go of the clinch and just threw a right hook, which ended up knocking him out. If we watch the replay, missed the knee and threw the right hand, put Dariush out cold. Now, this is one of the examples of Arman Tsarukyan's aggressiveness out of the clinch, but as you notice, he didn't really try and grapple with Beneil Dariush. And I think that's a very interesting thing, because Beneil Dariush himself is a really good grappler, not necessarily in the wrestling aspect. I mean, he has good wrestling. We saw how he matched up with Gamrot, but more so in the jiu-jitsu aspect, where when you're actually on the ground with him, that's where he's gonna be very dangerous. And Arman did try to take him there. Of course, it was only like a minute into the fight that it lasted, but we saw that that was not his game plan, right? He wanted to probably stuff the takedown, stay on the outside, and then explode with tough shots. Right now, going against a guy in Joaquim Silva, which is what we're gonna watch now, we can see a variety of those lead side kicks that he's throwing. He really likes the 1-2 lead roundhouse as well, but now he just caught a kick, entered into the takedown. And something I want to talk about in this fight is actually what we're about to see after this takedown. You see how let's pause it. You see how he's moving this right leg right here inside of Joaquim Silva's leg. He's trying to get what's called inside positioning, and if he can get that, he could drag him down. Here's the inside positioning with the left leg. He could drag him back down to the mat. There's the inside positioning, and then he gets into the guard, right? However, this is the problem, because if you're trying to take down a guy like Charles Oliveira, which you probably don't want to do, staying in his guard is the worst possible thing you could do. And Arman Tsarukyan, as we've seen in his fights, he doesn't go for submissions. Why? Because he doesn't really pass the guard. And in this fight later on, he does end up passing the guard, but in this entire first round, he is just content to sit here in the guard. While this guard is nullified with Silva's back up against the cage, this is still not a spot where you want to be with Charles Oliveira. Joaquim Silva isn't really known for his bottom game or jiu-jitsu or anything like that. He's mainly a striker, but still, this is not the place you're going to want to be with Charles Oliveira. And I can show you why. Now, some of you might be saying, oh, well, Makhachev was able to submit Charles Oliveira. Well, first of all, that was a rocked and dropped and hurt Charles Oliveira that he submitted. Charles actually had a bit of success against Islam Makhachev in the grappling aspect, and I'm probably gonna pull that one up later in this video. And also, Islam Makhachev is also a much better grappler than Arman Tsarukyan when it's actually on the ground. As far as wrestling, they're about even, which we saw in their first matchup. But as far as grappling goes, Islam Makhachev is the better grappler. And even he had a lot of trouble trying to have success against Charles Oliveira. Round 2, you see them start on the feet again. They're in the same stance. Arman's still looking for that lead side roundhouse to the body. But good footwork. He's able to stay on the outside against guys who are blitzing in. He exits off early. He doesn't let his back get held up against the cage. There's that 1-2 switch body kick again, and that can actually be a good thing against Charles Oliveira, but since Charles Oliveira stands very tall. But he's kind of just spamming it. He's kind of spamming that 1-2 lead body kick. Ooh, there he goes. The main time Arman's actually able to land his hands is off of those clinch exchanges as well, which is why you see him tie up so much, get people think grappling, and then he'll go back to the striking. Very strong Arman Tsarukyan is though. Look how strong that he is. And this is why he uses the clinch as much as he does. Because when he is staying in boxing range, he does get clipped a little bit. Not that he doesn't have good hands. I mean, you can see he's putting his hands and kicks together very well. But the thing he's mainly landing with are his body kicks. He's not really landing with, ooh, oh, getting aggressive in that clinch. It's what I like to call wrestle boxing. He's a very good boxer whenever he has the wrestling to add in. Again, gets in that clinch, constantly looking to strike off the break. Oh, that was a close elbow that almost hit him. The thing about clinching and boxing into the clinch is that a lot of times your hands come away from your face in order to grab that clinch, which leaves your face vulnerable, which is how you get clipped. See, he won't stay there and box with you for too long before he grabs you. But one problem with this is that this is what Charles Oliveira likes. However, this is how Arman Tsarukyan will try and come forward. He mixes in that boxing with the clinch grappling. But is that what you want to do against a guy like Charles Oliveira? Again, went for that body kick. Good uppercut. Oh, got tagged by that left hook. Oh, he got wobbled again by that left hook. Oh no. Constantly trying to grab. So he got hurt and immediately started to wrestle. He went back to his roots. Immediately started to wrestle. But that's not something you want to do, man. This is something that gives me confidence for Charles Oliveira, being a Charles Oliveira fan. That's like, man, if you can hurt him, he's going to go back to his roots. And that's what Charles Oliveira counts on almost. He wants these wrestlers who are going to end up wrestling them whenever they get hurt or uncomfortable in a striking situation. Now, Arman does a good job of controlling him, landing damage again from the guard. You see how he's okay staying in the guard. However, round 3, they're back on the feet. Good body kick to jab. Joaquim himself is throwing hard. Arman boxes his way into the clinch, gets his hands connected. See if he's able to take him down here. Oh, a little bit of a momentum throw right there. He's in half guard, trying to get that wrist ride. Joaquim Silva gets his back to the cage. And you see how he's keeping the legs off the ground. This is one thing he does really well. He keeps the leg, he has the inside position like we were talking about earlier, but he also keeps Joaquim Silva's legs off the ground, which stops him from being able to make his escapes. Right here, Joaquim Silva needs to, what he would have to do is actually stop trying to just shrimp out. Once he has this kind of space, he needs to go feet on the hips and then start looking to attack the legs. That's something that Charles Oliveira does to get people scared of being in his guard, because whenever you start attacking legs against a wrestler, you start disrupting their base. Not only do they fatigue more, but they also just want to start abandoning, because if they can stay in your guard without much threat, they're willing to do that. But the moment you start forcing them to need to start passing guard and constantly passing and passing, you're throwing up attacks, they're going to stop wanting to be there. But Silva instead accepts this position, closes his legs, and this is pretty much all she wrote. Now, continuing on, And to watch the last fight of Arman Tsarukyan before we get into his keys to victory, we're gonna watch his fight with Mateusz Gamrot. And the reason why we're watching this is because he's going against another guy, again, who's a grappler, a wrestler more specifically, who might not necessarily have the best jiu-jitsu, but could pose a threat in the wrestling. And I think Charles Oliveira's wrestling really isn't bad. A lot of times we see him get taken down because he doesn't mind getting taken down or because he wants to pull guard, as we talked about before. But here he goes, throwing that 1-2 lead body kick again. As soon as Mateusz tries to close the distance, it's a natural. It's not a panic shot, I don't want to call it that, but it's an instinctual shot into the wrestling exchanges. Goes for the front headlock, and then Gamrot starts riding up into a single, and now he's defending. Now his wrestling is A1 steak sauce. I mean, his wrestling is legit. Look at the flexibility. Look at how he defended that. There's no question or doubts about his wrestling. And then going right to the body with the kicks. What there is concerns with is his ground game. Because I really feel that Charles Oliveira, if taken down by him, can submit Arman Tsarukyan. Now, will it be off of his back? I'm not sure. That depends, and we're going to talk about how he can do that. But if he gets on top, that's a definite possibility. Arman's a very kick-heavy fighter. You see him attacking that lead leg of Gamrot. And then a 1-2 lead body kick. You see how many times he throws it. It's ingrained in him to throw that shot. This is one of the ways that a guy like Charles Oliveira can not only expose the back, but also get on top. Because if we go back, when you throw that kick so telegraphed the way he does, if he gets caught, it's very easy to off balance you, or if you decide to defend the single leg after he raises it up, they can go ahead and take it back. However, Arman times a very beautiful takedown right there, looking to just control him against the fence. Mateusz, however, rolls, and this is something you're gonna see out of Oliveira. You'll definitely see him rolling, Granby rolling, looking to roll for legs. And if Arman decides to lock on the way he does, like a wrestler, if he gives this position up to Oliveira, it could be game over. Let Oliveira get you back like this and see if you don't end up unconscious. You know what I mean? Good wrestling, good recovery by Arman, but Mateusz himself is not a Charles Oliveira type grappler. Another thing is, when you try and stay in these clinch situations with Oliveira, he's so good about throwing knees and driving knees in there that get you to hurl over, or that get you to overcommit on posture, and then from there he might pull guard into like a leg entanglement or pull guard into like a guillotine and things like that. As well as Oliveira has good wrestling as well. But my point in breaking down this fight, and that's kind of what I wanted to show you, there's more wrestling exchanges that end up in Tsarukyan's back actually getting taken, but you see how many kicks he throws. This is going against a wrestler in Gamrot. If Charles Oliveira gets that positioning, that's the position I'm talking about. Rides him into the cage and then gets into that clinch, or even tries to trip the back leg, like we saw Merab do to Henry Cejudo. You saw that Gamrot was able to catch the kick. If Charles gets here, this could be a bad night for Arman Tsarukyan. So there are ways that Charles Oliveira is going to be able to get on top. We'll see if Tsarukyan throws as many kicks as he does against Charles Oliveira, but we just saw him against a striker. He threw a lot of kicks. The same exact kick. We just saw him against Mateusz Gamrot, a wrestler, someone you expect to catch kicks, and again, he's throwing kicks. So there's a very real possibility that Tsarukyan can end up on his back, or even worse, can end up giving his back to a guy like Charles Oliveira. Now, see how many kicks Tsarukyan throws? Tsarukyan is such an aggressive fighter that this fight, win or lose, is going to be an exciting one. And then when it seems like he's not having enough success on the feet, that's when he goes for his shots. Now, to be honest, I thought that Tsarukyan actually won this fight. I think it was a very close fight, but I had Arman winning in this fight. But with that being said, what are Arman Tsarukyan's keys to victory in order to beat Charles Oliveira at UFC 300? Man, you know, first key to victory, as we talked about, is that Arman Tsarukyan is gonna need to wrestle box, because neither Charles Oliveira or Arman Tsarukyan are the best in boxing range, or at staying in boxing range and angling off and using all these sort of things. They both mix their grappling into their striking with their hands. However, he has to be aware of the knees in the clinch from Charles Oliveira. They both throw it. They're both very aggressive in the clinch. But I think wrestle boxing, to get into the clinch, to then disengage and strike off the breaks, would be a very important key to victory for Arman Tsarukyan in getting the win. So striking off of the break in the clinch, because we can almost expect that it's going to be there. Using a lot of footwork would be my second key to victory for Arman Tsarukyan. Stand on the outside, exiting, and then choosing your spots where you want to explode, because the more you could get Charles Oliveira to come forward and commit to that forward pressure, the more his chin's going to be in the air, the more he's gonna get frustrated and want to get in and have that action right away. So I think staying patient, stand on the outside, is gonna be the second key to victory for Arman Tsarukyan in this fight. And then lastly, but definitely not least, keep the kicks either very low, like to the calf, or kick up high to the head. I'm not saying abandon the kicks altogether, because that's a big part of Arman Tsarukyan's game, but the fact that he likes to kick to the body so many times, I mean, yeah, you could hurt someone to the body, you could break the ribs, kick their liver and things like that, but is it really worth the risk going against a guy like Charles Oliveira, who, if he takes you down, could be the last time that you see any sort of success on the ground or on the feet or in the fight in general? Anytime Charles Oliveira takes someone down, there's always a threat that they can go to sleep. So those are my keys to victory for Arman Tsarukyan in order to win this fight. Now we are going to move in to Charles Oliveira, his keys to victory, and his film study and breakdown, starting off with his fight with Beneil Dariush. Being his latest fight, I think this one's important to watch, and I also think that there's some things that people didn't really realize in this fight. So he's throwing these kicks up the middle, he's throwing roundhouse kicks, right? That was a good roundhouse that he landed on Dariush. Dariush is, the reason he was getting hit by all these strikes is because he is ready to throw with Charles Oliveira. He doesn't plan on moving backwards. If he had that in mind, he'd be circling right now. However, he's ready to throw. He's standing here right in front of him. He's throwing high kicks so that they're not able to be caught. And then he just ate that knee to the body. Now, in this case scenario with Arman Tsarukyan, Arman should be trying to back out of here, and while Charles Oliveira is reaching in order to keep him in the clinch, that's when he has the opportunity to elbow or throw hooks off of the break in the clinch. However, if he lets Charles Oliveira latch onto him like this with this whizzer, look to get like an over-under grip, it's very possible that Charles Oliveira could inside trip him, or even look to, if he fails that trip, pull guard. Now, right here, you see how he pull guard and he's immediately looking for that deep half guard. Well, from here, he likes to go for leg attacks. This is what Islam Makhachev was worried about. We'll watch later in a clip that Islam Makhachev, when he got him down and Charles started going for the legs, actually ended up backing out, because that's kind of all you can do. As a matter of fact, I'll pull it up right now. So again, Charles starts off with the high kick. Islam is ready to throw right away as well. Get that respect immediately. Charles lands a teep, but let's go ahead and go into that grappling exchange. Immediately, he pulls the same position. Right? He gets into the clinch. He pulls guard. He has this deep butterfly. Goes into a full guard. He starts trying to attack the upper body, and then as soon as Islam's posture rises from these triangle and armbar attacks, that's when you're going to see him either start looking to close the guard back up, escape, or go after the legs. Another thing Charles Oliveira does a lot is he strikes from the bottom, and oftentimes when he does that, it's that new approach to playing guard in MMA that often gets his opponents tired or can end up getting them to overcommit and jump into a submission. So you can see, as Islam is holding him down in the guard, he's not really having much success. Yes, he's on top, but it's very difficult for him to not only keep his balance, but it's very difficult for him to stay on top without receiving damage himself. He gets into the half guard here. Oliveira inverts, starts going after the leg, and you can see immediately Islam wants to get up, almost gives his back in order to do so. And right there is just a sliver of opportunity for Oliveira that he can use against Arman Tsarukyan. So that's what I meant when I said that Islam didn't have the most success grappling against him. Now right here is a much better situation for Islam because he actually had him close to this cage. Again, Oliveira is able to retain guard, but it wasn't until he had his head up against the cage right here that Islam started having success, because this nullifies all the attacks. If Arman could get here, it's okay to stay on guard, keep his feet off the ground, and just ground and pound him into the ground. However, even being here though, is this really where you want to be in the fight with Charles Oliveira? As you can see, Charles is trying to angle off, get that head away from the cage, and then land success of his own. Man, such a dangerous guard Charles Oliveira has. You got to get past those legs. And even if you do, he could just re-guard and look to elbow and hammer fist you and shit like that. So this is what I meant. That's kind of what I wanted to see from his Islam Makhachev fight. But back to the Dariush fight and how he uses his guard in this one. He's able to re-guard against Dariush. But look at how he's fighting from guard. Nothing's really landing on him. He's blocking everything. If anything, he's landing strikes back. As soon as Dariush starts to posture up, he looks to go De La Riva. Let's actually go back. So Dariush starts to stack him, posture up. Charles, you see his hands go to both ankles. This is very good way to off balance someone. Dariush is aware of it, pulls his leg out, but that leaves him in a De La Riva guard right here, which is another method to off balance your opponent. And because Dariush doesn't like that, he just kind of plops down into the guard, looks to try and control him again and try and land strikes. But again, none of these strikes are hitting. If you look at this in slow-mo, none of these are hitting. So Charles Oliveira is staying safe and actually is landing good shots of his own, which we're going to see. So he's trying to pressure him. He's trying to stack him and start landing strikes. Now Dariush is starting to try and pass, gets into a half guard. And what does Oliveira do? Immediately starts to go after the legs. Forces Dariush back into the grappling exchanges, looks to try and get in that saddle, and now Dariush needs to run. He needs to get away or push that leg down. Okay, he pushes the leg down, looks to try and stay on top, and we're back in guard. Another method that Charles Oliveira uses, and the reason why he's doing this and it's okay being here in this guard, is because these actually aren't very tiring attacks for a guy like Charles Oliveira who's used to attacking off his back. Not only is this stopping him from getting damaged, but it's also tiring out a guy like Beneil Dariush, who's having to keep his balance, who's constantly trying to throw strikes and carry his balance and carry the weight and trying to stand up and guard. And it's a lot more tiring for Dariush than a guy like Oliveira, who's just off of his back. He's just laying on his back, off balancing him, using the De La Riva again, kicked him off. Regained the half guard, full guard. Right now, Oliveira is actually winning these exchanges. He's landing the harder hammer fists. He's blocking all these punches. He lands that nasty elbow. He actually landed a few nasty elbows in here. And while Dariush is really good on the ground, and maybe it might look good to the judges what he's doing here, he really wasn't landing much. Oliveira gets this overhook. Dariush actually pulls this one out. But again, Oliveira is okay opening his legs, looking to wrestle up and get out. If he can't find success, that knee to the body is going to be a big thing going against Arman Tsarukyan. Look how he's pressuring him. Oh, good elbow. That's where Arman Tsarukyan is going to have to capitalize. When Charles Oliveira breaks from the clinch, he'll extend away, he'll break from the clinch, and look where his hands are, away from his face. This is also what I was talking about with if Arman decides to disengage. This is what I'm talking about, hands away from the face. That's where you can throw your hooks, your kicks, anything to try and catch a guy like Charles Oliveira. However, Dariush is still not trying to move. He ate that head kick, man, and then Charles cuts him off with strikes. And look at this. Now Dariush is a grappler, right? He gets under pressure, he gets hurt, and immediately starts grabbing on a leg, starts trying to wrestle, similar to what we saw from Arman Tsarukyan when he gets hurt. And from there, look how slick this back take is from Charles Oliveira. He's trying to stuff the head, immediately goes over the arm. Look at this, he did the same shit to Justin Gaethje. Stuffs the head, it goes in between, he steps over around to the back. And while he isn't able to get the back because Dariush accepts bottom, he is able to just ground and pound him out. And that's the end of the fight. Now, Again, this is not Arman Tsarukyan, and I'm not saying it is, but these are very prone things that we're seeing. Let me know if what I'm saying is making any sense as we move on to the next fight. And the last fight for Charles Oliveira, his fight with Justin Gaethje. Now this fight right here shows us maybe the most realistic approach that we might see from Arman Tsarukyan, kicking his leg, maybe even trying to move more. Gaethje wasn't using as much footwork. He was okay being in the clinch. But you see immediately what Charles Oliveira does. Once you get to the clinch, he's grabbing on the head, weighing you down, looking to knee into a guillotine. Gaethje realizes it, backs out, and now he's using more footwork. Still ready to throw, but using footwork. These straight kicks from Oliveira back his opponents up to the cage where he wants them. Oh. But look at this. He throws the overhand, immediately starts looking to clinch. And this is where I'm scared for Charles Oliveira, because Arman Tsarukyan is aggressive out of the clinch, and he will throw strikes off the break like Justin Gaethje. And when Justin Gaethje landed, he dropped Charles Oliveira. Now, Charles might not have been the most hurt. He might have been okay to fall to his back. You never know. But again, Charles is looking to box into the clinch, leaving his hands extended from his head. And with someone who likes to box like Justin Gaethje, that's a result that's very easy to happen. You can get knocked out. Now the pace kind of slows a little bit. Take a little breather. They both received a good amount of damage. Charles he's not as eager to get into the clinch anymore, as you can see. Instead, everything now, since he was getting caught, is protecting his face. I want you to look at these last couple of exchanges. Hand up to the head. He abandoned that clinch very quickly. Look at it again. He throws the jab. He misses. Looks to grab the head, but then realizes immediately, I'm open. Look, his right hand's down. His left hand is extended. He throws the uppercut, lands it across Gaethje's chin, and his hand goes right back to his head. Very quick adjustments from Charles Oliveira, especially after being hurt the way he was. That was a very good adaptation. That's something he's going to need to be defensively responsible over in this Arman Tsarukyan fight. And now look, keeping his hands up high, lets Gaethje overswing, comes back with a 1-2. Very beautiful from Charles Oliveira. Now he can get into the clinch. Cuts him off with strikes with that left hook into an uppercut. Sees Gaethje's posture is lower. Looks for the flying knee into the guillotine. Constant attacks. His offense is his defense, and that's what's so exciting but also so dangerous about Charles Oliveira. It's not that his defense was any better against Dariush. It wasn't his defense, it was his offense. Even from the ground, it was his offense that was able to help defend against a guy like Beneil Dariush. Same way his offense is defending against a guy like Justin Gaethje. It's a constant slew of offense. Again, left hook to the uppercut, knee to the body. Oh, he's that left hook. Got a hand up in there last second, but still ate it. Looks for a little takedown into the clinch. Now he's looking to pull guard. Oh, yeah. There he goes. Opens up. Gaethje does not want to be there, though. Abandons it. Smart. Kicks Charles' leg. Again, they're in the clinch. A knee to a guillotine. Now, it's very dangerous to lead with a left hook the way he's doing so much, but I think it's because Gaethje keeps a high guard that he's really just trying to get Gaethje's guard up, have him duck right into that uppercut, and also look to throw knees up the middle as well. Oh, that was a good one too by Charles. That hurt Gaethje. Now Gaethje's overcommitting. This is what that pressure will do to you, man. Again, Charles is keeping his hands a lot higher. Lands that crane kick, leads with the left hook again. Very dangerous. So you see Ryan Garcia do that a lot too, and you saw how that played out against Tank. They always say in boxing not to lead with the left hook. Look, this is what I'm scared about. Look, he reaches out for the clinch, but they're too extended, and Gaethje's still willing to throw. He lands that shot from Arman Tsarukyan. That could be night-night. But Charles also strikes off the break, being aggressive in the clinch, and look at the way he takes his back. Oh my god, like a fucking snake. Steps into half guard. Gaethje looks to wrestle up. He reaches around for the back with the second hook. Gaethje actually does a good job of escaping this back attack because he's looking for a triangle. Charles is. He's looking for either a triangle or an armbar situation. Looks to lock in the triangle. Gaethje does a good job fighting this top leg, which is the one he needs to fight. He needs to push it away. That way he could look to turn on and get on top. Then he has to start worrying about the arm again. By the time he does this, Charles Oliveira, look at how he just steps around, takes the back again. And it's that same sequence from the Beneil Dariush fight, to where he steps around the shoulder and takes the back. Not the exact same sequence, but very similar, and from there it's over. God, yeah, you let him get on your back, and the fight's very close to being over. So, guys, that was the film breakdown for Charles Oliveira in his fights against Islam Makhachev, Beneil Dariush, and Justin Gaethje. So, to be honest, guys, I think this fight is going to come down to whoever can dominate the clinch the most, because whoever controls the clinch controls who goes forward. Arman Tsarukyan, as we talked about earlier, is the shorter, stockier fighter. He's going to need to be coming forward. But with a guy like Charles Oliveira, who throws a lot of knees, elbows, and is looking to constantly pressure you forward, it's a hard task to actually be able to go forward against a guy like that. I mean, Justin Gaethje, a guy we're used to seeing come forward and bring the chaos, had the chaos brought to him. He landed his good shots, but still, Charles Oliveira would not back up for extended periods of time. And that's very well what we could see against Arman, and that in itself could nullify Arman Tsarukyan's kicks. So, for keys to victory for Charles Oliveira, I think Charles Oliveira, one thing he does very well is throw a lot of kicks, and I think that the kicks are going to be important in this fight. But I think the reason that they're going to be important in this fight isn't necessarily to hurt Arman, but is to start setting up his hands. Instead of looking to use your hands to set up the clinch, use your kicks to set up your hands. That might just in and of itself set up the clinch. So starting off with your longest assets, being the longer fighter, he's gonna have to start with his kicks to use them to set up his hands. That could be faking a teep into like a Superman punch. That could be kicking the head, and then as you bring that leg down, throwing the cross over the top. There's a lot of different ways you can do this, but using the kicks to set up the hands and then eventually to get into the clinch and hopefully on the ground is a big deal. Second key to victory is catching kicks. I think that Arman Tsarukyan throws a lot of kicks. I don't think Charles Oliveira is going to need to pressure as much. He is a taller, longer fighter, and you generally don't want to pressure the shorter guy that much, because then you're giving him an opportunity and you're running into his power, right? So if he can play at range a little bit and give Arman Tsarukyan the confidence to throw a little bit more kicks and capitalize off of that by catching them and then using that to get into the clinch, or using that to take Arman Tsarukyan down or even take his back, I think it's going to be another important key to victory. And three, the last key to victory for Charles Oliveira, and something that I think is going to be very and maybe the most important thing in this fight, is to not headhunt, man. Do Bronx, but do it in a smart way. Against Beneil Dariush, we didn't have the time to be able to see if he was headhunting or not, because it was just a constant slew of offense. But against a guy like Islam Makhachev, who was able to use that outside footwork, and something I am pretty sure Arman Tsarukyan is going to be doing and using the outside footwork, you don't want to run into shots the same way you did against Islam Makhachev, throwing that unsolicited flying knee and then landing, and as you're landing, you're getting caught by a left hook. I think a patient approach to pressure, kicking the legs to eliminate that footwork very early on, whether that's a side kick to the legs, whether that's you mixing up the teeps or going to the body with the hands, or kicking the legs with roundhouse kicks, any way to slow down the footwork or to discourage Arman Tsarukyan from using constant footwork is going to be a positive in this one. So guys, those are the keys to victory I have for Charles Oliveira. That's my breakdown for Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan at UFC 300. I know it was a bit of a long one, but you know, I like to give you guys the best breakdowns I possibly can, and I like to go in depth with these sort of things. But before we end off this video, I'm gonna give you guys my official prediction for this fight, and based off of who I think has the more opportunities to get this one done. If you look at Arman Tsarukyan and you look at the ways he has to get this one done, he's not gonna do it by submission, right? He could do it by decision, but I mean, the way Charles Oliveira's fights play out, they have 5 rounds, or is it a 3-rounder? I think they have 5 rounds. You know, I don't think that this one's gonna go the distance. Even if it is a 3-round fight, that's gonna create an even higher pace, and I still don't think that it's gonna go all 3 rounds. However, if it does go all 3 rounds, he could maybe nullify Charles Oliveira with the wrestling. But if you think about his main base art, the one that gets him the most success, his wrestling, it's not a finishing art, which means he's gonna have to control every second of the fight, every second of the chaos, which is a hard ask going against a guy like Charles Oliveira. Now, can he defend a couple takedowns, land a big hook, and put Charles Oliveira out? 100%. Can he catch Oliveira off the break in the clinch and put Charles Oliveira out? 100%. But as far as who has more ways to win, I think that's gonna go with Charles Oliveira. I think if Arman does take him down, he has to worry about the leg locks going into the triangles, and if he doesn't get tired from defending constant attacks from Charles Oliveira, Charles is also keen to wrestle up, try and take it back. There's so many different avenues of victory for Charles Oliveira. He could very well knock out Arman Tsarukyan, whether that be a knee, uppercut, or overhand right. I think they're relatively similar in the clinch aspects of the game, but I just think that Charles Oliveira, his devastating style is just more prone to finishes, more prone to being able to end the fight early, and generally I think that also equates to skill level. Being able to finish fights has to do with skill, not necessarily only recklessness. So with that being said, I'm choosing Charles Oliveira to win. How he wins, I think he could probably submit him. I think he'll hurt him on the feet. Arman will probably shoot a takedown instinctually, and he could end up in a guillotine rear naked choke sequence. I'm not the only one who thinks that. Mateusz Gamrot also talked about Charles Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan and said that this very well may happen as well. However, guys, let me know your thoughts. Let me know who you got winning this fight. I'll be excited to read your comments in this section after this video uploads. However, with that being said, thank you for watching this video. Stay safe, stay blessed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.